Welcome to Things You Should Know, Civil War Edition. Today we'll be talking about the final two battles of the Trail of Blood on Ice campaign for control of the tribal lands during the American Civil War. The battles would contain the Battle of Bird Creek, otherwise known as the Battle of Chustenahlah, and the second battle, the Battle of Chustenahlah. The Battle of Bird Creek, also known as the Battle of Caving Banks and the Battle of High Shoal, was fought December 9, 1861 in what is now Tulsa County, Oklahoma. During the time of the American Civil War, this occurred on tribal lands, and sadly very little information is known, but we'll share with you what we could find. After the loss at Round Mountain, the retreating forces of Chief Chustenahlah reached Bird Creek at the Horseshoe Bend. It was here that Confederate Colonel Douglas Cooper's 1,400 men attacked at about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Chief Chustenahlah knew Cooper was coming and placed his troops in a strong position in the heavy timber at the Horseshoe Bend. For almost 4 hours, Cooper attacked and attempted to outflank the Union forces. Finally, he drove them across Bird Creek just before dark. However, Cooper camped at Bird Creek overnight and did not pursue the Union troops because he was short on ammunition. Chief Chustenahlah and his band moved off in search of security elsewhere, while the Confederates claimed victory. The Union losses was estimated by Cooper to be at 500 people. Other accounts suggest this was closer to 400. The Confederate casualties were 15 killed and 37 wounded. However, it should be noted that with the 3,000 Union people, only about 500 were actual fighters. The rest of the Union people were children, the elderly, and the invalid. After this defeat, Chief Chustenahlah led his people back into Kansas. Meanwhile, Colonel Cooper's Confederate forces had slowly been losing tribal members to defection over the course of the month. In response, he called for help from Confederate Colonel James McIntosh, no relation to the Cree chief mentioned in Round Mountain. McIntosh and his 1,400 Texas and Arkansas cavalrymen moved out and went to reinforce Cooper's forces. The day after Christmas, the Confederate forces met with the Union forces, resulting in a fight at the Union's camp. McIntosh devised a plan to converge on the crest of the hill where the Union forces were camped. He ordered the South Kansas-Texas Cavalry, also known as the 3rd Texas Cavalry, to charge directly up the steep bluff on foot. The 11th Texas advanced to their left, using a defile for concealment, while the 6th Texas circled to the right. The Union forces were not able to push the Confederate forces back down from the crest. By the end of the fight, both sides had resorted to bitter hand-to-hand fighting. The retreat became a rout as the Union forces were pushed back to their camp. Colonel Stand Watie, with 300 Cherokee fighting for the Confederacy, intercepted the fleeing Union tribal forces, killing 15 more before Chief Chustenahlah stopped the fighting. The battle ended, and the remaining several thousand Union tribal members who were not killed or captured had to endure a winter on the prairie without the necessary food or clothes as they traveled to Fort Row, Kansas. The journey to Kansas killed many, with even more dying of exposure as they waited for help near the Union camps. The defeat of Chief Chustenahlah and his forces resulted in the Confederate forces consolidating their hold on the tribal lands in the area. The total estimated casualties for the battle only were 211 Union and 40 Confederate. And thus wraps up the campaign for the Trail of Blood on Ice for the control of tribal lands during the American Civil War.